Hey guys, it's beta day. Always a good day. Today Apple released iOS 13 beta 3. I'd love to walk you through all of the features and changes, so far that have been found, and this one couldn't have come soon enough as I've been having a lot of issues with beta 2, crashing, instability. It's better than beta 1, but I'm hoping this one does even better. So first thing is, it's not supported on the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus. For whatever reason, Apple skipped these devices with this beta. So first thing I noticed is that 3D Touch feels a little bit different. Now on the home screen, it's still this weird delayed response. Now in the Messages app, when you 3D Touch on a picture, it's actually back in some capacity. So now 3D Touch, as you can see, shows up like this. Before, it would just sort of weirdly pop up after a moment. You can actually slide up and get your options back. And yet, when you 3D touch on a link, it doesn't behave the same way. It's more of a haptic touch still, so they keep swapping the behaviors. In the control center, 3D touch on the volume icon, you can see some bolder icons here, and the iPhone has shrunk. On the camera platter, there's some new icons here for take a portrait, more of a cube instead of an avatar. And if using Beats headphones in the volume platter, you can directly enable noise cancellation right here. On the keyboard, the microphone icon down here is larger, bolder. Click on it, and the actual keyboard itself has changed. So some new glyphs there. By the way, beta 3 is on the left, beta 2 is on the right. Now when taking full page screenshots, you're not just limited to Safari anymore. You can do it in any application that supports this feature. So also, when doing a full page screenshot, when you go into the cropping tools, I noticed that the interface is now larger. So it's easier to crop huge websites as it gives you a little bit more room. For whatever reason, you couldn't click the trash can icon before when taking a screenshot. Now that works. And on the bottom in the screenshot menu, the tool for opacity has an icon next to it. Previously, it did not. Now in the Apple App Store, in the arcade section, there's an animated playthrough of several games coming to the Apple Arcade of the 100 Plus. This is coming closer to the fall. We still don't have access to this feature. Also within the App Store, when in dark mode or pretty much in any section of iOS, the search bar is now hidden. It's very hard to see it, and it's a very nice visual change, I'd say. Same thing in the settings and pretty much any other application with a search bar. Click on it and it's still clickable, but it doesn't discern itself as easily against the black background. Messages now has a new welcome screen with icons and a section for new Memoji. Also a behavior change: when you click on continue, it no longer takes you to this page right here talking about Memoji. It just jumps straight into the interface where you can customize them. And I noticed the interface gives you a little bit more breathing room to look at your avatar up here or your Memoji. Also in the keyboard, the Memoji stickers little splash screen over here is smaller on beta 3 and less text. And when leaving the customizer for Memoji, now the options are discard changes and keep editing instead of discard and cancel. A much needed visual change in Messages is the typing indicator now shows dark when dark mode is activated. Now when selecting more options in Messages, the option is changed from Select Messages to Manage Messages List. Now when selecting an image in Messages, the trash can is larger now instead of this little tiny dinky one over here. In Shortcuts, when selecting apps to make an automation, you now have a dedicated app drawer. Looks way better in beta 3 now. Now in the Home app, after updating, if you have any home network cameras that haven't been updated by the manufacturer to support secure recording, you're gonna get this notice right here, and hopefully eventually they will update it. And that feature is where they never see your information. It goes straight to Apple and they decode it and show it to you within the Home app. In the Home app, when 3D touching a peek and pop on one of your devices, there's a slightly less delayed animation now. Just pops up a little bit more sharply. In the Contacts app, now on beta 3, your emergency contacts will have this little red star next to them, making them easier to find in an emergency. In the Mail application, when swiping to archive a message, it now shows up as purple instead of the old blue. This next one is some futuristic stuff. Within the FaceTime settings, there's a new option on certain devices called FaceTime Attention Correction. And as far as I know, it's only available on the XS, XS Max, and XR. Even the iPhone X doesn't have it yet, and unknown if it ever will. But what this feature does, as found by some users, is when you're calling someone through FaceTime and you're looking at the screen and not the camera, your iPhone will create an optical illusion where it'll seem as if you're looking at the camera even though you're not. Very cool stuff. I personally did try it and I wasn't able to reproduce it. For some reason, for me, it never worked. It always looked like I was looking at the screen, but other users are reporting it is working. A couple of changes in the iCloud settings. Subscriptions has been lumped with the top menu, and the iCloud tab now has an icon. In the wallpaper menu, the descriptions have been fixed. They're no longer cut off. And in the settings where applicable, the check mark now looks better. It's not as thin, more visible. The Health app gets a new graphic for the Access Your Records section. In settings, the Face ID and passcode and battery icons are now a deeper, richer green. Very subtle, very hard to catch. And within the actual battery settings, if you click on the suggestion for auto brightness, now instead of taking you to the display accommodations, it'll take you to a custom tailored page with all of the display options you can possibly need in one area. In the privacy settings, the motion and fitness tab now has a new icon with also a deep, rich green. Also within privacy and system services, there's a new option here for improving maps. In the reminders app, show reminders as overdue is now show as overdue and on the bottom. In Safari settings, in the experimental section, there's a new option here for synthetic editing commands amongst others. In Safari, in the share sheet, create PDF has been replaced with markup. Same function. It'll still create a PDF at the end. And now by default, the markup tools are available as soon as you click in. Previously, you had to actually click on them, an additional step. And the markup tools are no longer translucent, so on beta 2, you can sort of see through them. Now it's this matte gray color. I like it better. And on the bottom right, you'll notice the color picker is wider, more pleasing to look at. Going into the magnifier here, the magnifier looks different. It no longer has the border. I'd say it's a step backwards, but still works just fine. Just a different look. Now when scrolling in Safari, you'll notice the position bar is a gray. It's easier to discern against a white background. Over here, it's a white, almost invisible. And going into the page controls on the top left, you'll see that the Request Desktop website icon is now more refined, in iMac several generations newer. And going into Show Reader View over here, clicking on it once again to reveal the text, you'll notice the fonts are representative of the actual fonts. Over here, they just say it's in the standard iOS font. In the Files app, now the delete icon is red, letting you know, yes, deleting is dangerous. In the Find My app, there's a new tab for Me, and it'll give you this information here. Previously, it was sort of incorporated into different functions in the app. So Apple is further refining that application. In the Notes app, there's also a further refined splash screen here detailing these options. In the Notes application, when you 3D touch on a note, you'll notice the icons are representative of the options now where there weren't before. In the share sheet settings of Photos, the Add to Album icon now has a little plus next to it, and Create an Apple Watch face now has an actual Apple Watch next to it. Also, when you select on the options up here, full original capture is replaced by all photos data with a new description. And the Wallet application will greet you with this screen, letting you know that your privacy is in good hands. Now in beta 3, the volume slider in the Music app goes all the way to the right, where previously it was like a glitch. It didn't let you do that, and it was as if you weren't getting the maximum volume. That's since been fixed. And it looks like Apple has fixed a double volume indicator bug here. In YouTube, previously you had both. Now on Apple's end, they fixed that. And a few more changes on the iPad. On the keyboard, the copy paste, the quick controls over here are now bolder. They look better than before. And pay attention to this little bar up here. When going from window to window, there's a very subtle animation, kind of a fade in, letting you know which window you're on and which one you're inputting text on. Now on the iPad, we already know we can use a cursor. Honestly, a very cool feature. But now there's an option to change the cursor size. So you drag this and it becomes really obnoxiously big, and you can make it much more refined. So obviously Apple doesn't want to put one of those old school cursors on here, but this gets the job done, I guess. On the iPad in Safari, holding on a tab brings up this submenu right here. And you have an option to close other tabs now, leaving only this one open. Very, very handy feature. And as this user points out, it looks like Apple is expanding the amount of devices that can connect to the iPhone or the iPad over the USB connection. So here he shows a PSP, and good times, actually showing up, well, the Sony memory card inside of it in the Files application. He also connects an optical drive and a calculator. The calculator can now be read by the iPhone. Man, that is cool. I love that Apple is adding support for more and more devices here. Also on the iPhone, the time limit screen has been refined. Now comes with a little OK button down here. And CarPlay continues to receive updates here. The bottom controls are more refined, bolder, more clickable. I love what Apple's done to CarPlay in iOS 13. I mean, it's the first time for me personally that I'm ever experiencing it now that I have a car that can support it. But the new CarPlay interface just looks great. And one change in particular from iOS 13 Beta 2 I forgot to mention is the automatic sorting of checked items right here. and it'll drag them to the bottom. It is so handy instead of having to select it and drag it always to the bottom by yourself. So there it is, guys, iOS 13 Beta 3. A lot of refinements. You can tell that the groundwork has been laid. Now Apple's filling in all the missing pieces here, the little icons they forgot about, just fixing it up, getting it ready. And in under 3 months, the first version will be out for public use. There it is, guys. Stay tuned for any and more changes coming in the future. And I'd also love to run a Geekbench, but I was unable to launch the app. It just keeps crashing on me. So be wary of that. Some apps do not work after updating to Beta 3, but it's only some ones that haven't been updated on their own in a very long time. All right, guys. Peace.